especially since it's a Saturday afternoon and first Saturday that we have sunshine in about 10 days. I would like to introduce Mayor Ed Hatley to come to the speaker and have a few words and welcome you all here. So again, thank you. My name is Cindy Costanolo, and I somehow am the chair of this town hall. So thank you, Mayor Hatley, for coming. There you go.
I wish I could join you for the whole meeting, but I've got a commitment that I'm going to have to cut out on. But I could not, and I originally had said that I couldn't be here, but I wouldn't miss this. Our country has gotten into, how would you say it, a shape that we all need to get together. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. Our country is losing its democracy. Bottom line, that's it. And that's what scares the heck out of me. If you saw the Rachel Maddow show this past week, whenever she came on, she said, the time is here. It's not that we're going to see, but the time is here. And I want to thank the people of Lincoln County for coming and supporting such an important and vitally important to our country that, thank you for taking the time. And welcome to Lincoln. Thank you.
So again, my name is Cindy Costanolo. I'm one of the founders of Indivisible Lincoln County, North Carolina. You might ask why we're in Lincoln County, North Carolina, and that's because there's about 15 Indivisibles in Lincoln County across the country. And if you looked us up, you'd be sent to me. So anyway, again, like I said, I somehow found myself as the chair. I think what happened was we stood up and everyone took a step back. So here I am. John and I have lived here in Lincoln County for 27 years, which is hard to believe. I retired 4 years ago. That's even harder to believe. But anyway, when I retired, I realized I actually had time to get involved. And I needed to be around like-minded folks where I could express my views openly and stand up for something, because that was something I couldn't really do in my job. I joined a group of nonpartisan women called East Lincoln Concerned Women. While we have political party connections, we wanted to be inclusive to all Lincoln County voters and residents, regardless of party affiliation. And that included the whole county as well. In February, a few of us got together for coffee and decided Indivisible was exactly what we were looking for. Indivisible is a grassroots, pro-democracy, nonpartisan, and pro-accountability organizations. They provide support for local chapters like ours, with grants, training, education, and a strong structure for activism. Indivisible was started 9 years ago, and they are up to over 1,000 chapters and over 5,000 groups like ours. So people are getting motivated. We originally wanted this town hall to be with Congressman Patrick Harrigan and our House Representative for District 10. When he declined, and to be fair to him, his office told us that he was out of town this weekend. Rather than doing an empty chair, because a 6-foot empty chair, cutout was really expensive. But we felt like we would better use our time and your time, if we actually just provided an opportunity for open dialogue, discussion, and education on the recently passed budget bill. We hope to help all of you recognize exactly who we are as a community and learning things about Lincoln County that you may not know. And take a look at these slides, because it describes who we are. There's a QR code that you can hit, and if you go on our website, if you can't see or read all the slides, Please don't hesitate to go to the website. You can have the slides and take a look. It's pretty interesting statistics and information and data about our county that is important for you all to know. All right. The one thing about these slides I think is really important is we must understand this is who we are, and we must understand what the bill is going to impact, how it's going to impact us. We must know about that, and then we must make sure our representatives actually become accountable for the outcomes of this budget bill. We'll hear from our panel with insights on issues, and we invite you to briefly tell your story and ask a question. We're going to get to your question today. We'll do the research and share with you what we find. Lincoln County needs an organization that can rally a grassroots uprising to fight for our democracy, protect the vulnerable, and stand up for rural America. We believe that indivisible Lincoln County is just that. So please come join us, volunteer, come out, bring your neighbor, donate to support our work as you can. We're here to work for you and for us. And we've created a safe space, regardless of your political affiliation, your religious beliefs, sexual orientation, color of your skin, or your country or origin. We are here to experience being Americans. We are here to save our democracy, and the only way that happens is if we do it together. Thank you. I'm going to introduce our moderator, Amy Vaughn, and she's got some rules, just let you know. Reverend Amy Vaughn grew up in Krause and now lives in Catawba County. Her appointment with the United Methodist Church is the Lakeshore Collective, an inclusive and affirming emerging faith community. This community meets in public places and borrowed spaces in Lincoln County and Catawba County, like parks, restaurants, coffee shops, and bars. I hear she can be found most Wednesdays at Untapped Territories and occasionally hosting hops and hens or story sharing events. She speaks often to events to bring attention to the harm recent actions are causing for her neighbors in Lincoln and Catawba County. She taught in Lincoln County West and East Lincoln High School, thankfully, before my son went there. And before attending Wesleyan Theological Seminary in preparation for ordination. Thank you, Amy. It's all yours.
Well, hello everyone, hello neighbors, and I've been out and I've been living in Catawba County, but again, my name is Amy Vaughn, and I grew up, most of my childhood was in Lincoln County, and as an adult, a lot of my work is and has been in Lincoln County, so I care deeply about Lincoln County, and I care about North Carolina, and I care about this country, and I care about the whole world. And I believe that not naming the harm is avoidance, and not seeing the harm is denial. And I choose to name, to see, to listen, to care, to speak up, and to take action. And I hope that all of you do too. I want to thank our panel that is here today. Some of them winced at the expert title, but my husband told me that an expert is someone who comes in from out of town. So speaking of experts, I also have a lot of relatives in Lincoln County. In fact, I had to go out of state to be sure not marry a cousin. That's true. That is just true. So don't say anything about anyone in this county or Catawba County. They're probably related to me. I have at least one cousin out here now, maybe more. So panelists, you are not necessarily what you might say as experts, but you are people who have lived experiences with the topics that they will be talking about today. And here's how this is going to work. I will introduce our panelists, and they will either speak here or from where they are. This is a conversation we want to have with each other, so we are trying to make it so you can hear and see, but also not be so formal, okay? So they may make different choices about whether they stand or sit or come to the podium. And they'll have a few minutes about some topics that we did some research and we talked to a lot of people, and there's so many things. We could have been here for 3 whole days without stopping to cover all the topics. We tried to pick out some that seem to be at the top of many people's lists. Now, I'm going to introduce them. They'll shed some light on some of the topics that we've come up with, and then you'll have a chance to ask some questions. Now, because we have a limited amount of time, we do have a timekeeper.
We need to collect questions.
Okay.
We still don't.
Okay, you're gonna do that now? Okay. We'll have time for, if you've got some questions, you can give them to Vicki right here, okay? And while I'm stopped, I also forgot to mention some housekeeping. The bathrooms, there are bathrooms downstairs at the back of the auditorium or back in this hallway. The ladies is the first one, go around the corner, that's the men's room. And those are some exits also in case we would need it in case of an emergency. So just a little housekeeping there. So once our panelists have talked, and I know that some of you may have some need for clarification. We might be here all day if we do that kind of thing a lot. So we're going to save that until the end if we have time. And if there's further clarification, you can always contact us via our social media, or if you know one of us, and we'll try to hook you up with what might be clarifying information. We are timing this so that everyone has a chance, we get as many questions as possible. And our volunteers are looking at, sometimes there are questions that are very similar, so your question may be answered by someone else's question. So please be patient with that. And know that if we do not get to your particular question today, if you will leave those with us, and if you will give us your email address, we will do some research and try to find answers or resources to answer your questions. So I just want to make sure that all of you felt like we are trying to include as much as possible. With that said, I'm going to tell you just one more little thing about the timekeeping. Mel is right here. Mel has 3 paddles. Okay, can you show them, please?
Green.
Green, that's when you go. You got 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's for the questions.
3 minutes, these are the questions. And she's gonna hold up that yellow one at 1 minute, so you know you need to wind down. And then the red, wind it up, please, okay? Or I'll just card cut off your mind. But anyway, so that's just so that we can get as many questions in as possible today. We appreciate that you may be passionate about some things you ask. And perhaps at our next social event or other gathering, we can talk more casually among ourselves and talk about these other issues that maybe need a little bit more time for explanation. So I think I've covered the housekeeping, the rules. If you see someone in a blue shirt like this and have a question about Indivisible, feel free to ask us, and we will either tell you or tell you who to ask, okay? And we do invite you to participate with your questions and your stories. We want to hear from you because you're our neighbors. And I'm going to start by introducing our first speaker, Patty Fido. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay, Patty Fido. She is a veteran social studies and science teacher for Lincoln County Schools. Yay, that's great, isn't it? She has 3 incredible kids who went through the school system, and she believes that transformative education of our society's youth is essential in cultivating intelligent, well-rounded, problem-solving individuals who are ready to face the challenges of this world. And Patty is proud to be an important part of this process. So, Patty?
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Everybody's okay? All right. So crazy time to be alive, am I right? Well, my name is Patty Fido, longtime teacher in Lincoln County. I've got a couple of kids who went through the system. 2 of them are gonna be heading to Chapel Hill, I'm proud to say, this year, so that's pretty nice. And as an educator and parent, I know that the North Carolina school system, I know its ins and outs, and I know it pretty well. And I am honored to be here, so thank you so much for having me. I also thank you for being here. We are literally witnessing an unprecedented time in American history, a time where our forefathers did not predict and thus safeguard a time when many leaders in each of our three branches of government seem to have consciously decided not to enforce the checks and balances enshrined in our Constitution on the other branches when they overstep these. They do this to ensure that their political party's domination in our society is complete and without regard to whether it's what's best for our country. With this ideology, a crucial area where our rights are being threatened lies in the education of our children. Federally and in many states, our education systems are under attack or are already being strategically diminished and undermined or closing down. So let's take a look at North Carolina specifically. So what's the point of public schools? To start with that, what's the point of public schools? When answering, you would probably mention what's taught in classes, reading, math, science. You could mention other classes, art, computer programming, dance, or you could get to the deeper things like peer relationships, social emotional learning, those types of things. But when it comes down to it, education is the backbone of our country's plan to prepare its citizens for life in a shared society. Education empowers people to think critically, act wisely, and make informed choices in their lives, which can break the cycles of poverty and ignorance that limit our human progress. So I would hope that the public school system is seen as invaluable, and the teachers who ignite curiosity while guiding young minds toward their potential are highly supported and appreciated. So I have some notes. Okay, it says that North Carolina's public school funding effort is one of the lowest, with a rating of 49th out of 50 states. So that means 48 states give more money to public schools per student than North Carolina. 48? Uh-oh, those teachers we're supposed to support? North Carolina is ranked 43rd in average teacher pay, with most teachers saying they get paid less every year despite incremental raises now and then because of the rising costs of healthcare and inflation. Yikes. Well, maybe we just don't have that much money to give in the first place. Oh, wait. The money flowing through our state, the economy, the buying and the selling, we are the 12th strongest economy in the United States as far as states go. So 12th strongest out of 50 states. We should have money. Well, okay. Hey now, maybe teachers who have like a master's degree or a doctorate degree, they must get paid more. Because let me see, in 2013, North Carolina eliminated the automatic state-funded pay rates for teachers with advanced degrees. But that doesn't make sense, because wouldn't we want to encourage our teachers to increase their expertise? After all, our education shapes who we are, what we can do, and how our society works, both on a personal level and a global scale. I mean, we have your children, your most prized possessions in our classrooms daily, each weekday, and we spend a ton of time with them, right? It takes a village. Education helps share our knowledge, skills, confidence, growing the feeling of empowerment among these kids, opportunities they might have in the future because of their experience in the classroom. This empowers us to make informed choices. Education sharpens our communication skills, increases our likelihood of voting and practicing in civic engagement, and is strongly linked overall to like a healthier lifestyle and life expectancy. Okay. So let's narrow that down to one issue that North Carolina's been dealing with recently: the funding of private schools versus public schools. This is a debate that's been going on a long time. There's so much money out there, and our politicians that we put in office through our voting practices get to decide where that money is spent. Recently, North Carolina's Republican-led legislature voted in favor of adopting a federally funded, so not state-funded, federally funded voucher program for schools. A voucher, it's a piece of paper. It entitles the holder to like a discount or a good service. It's kind of like a prepaid coupon. In this instance, the voucher would allow federal tax deductible donations of $1,700 per student per year to go to a private school. The private school then chooses which students to accept and sponsors them with a federal tax break. Families making up to $212,000 a year in North Carolina are still eligible to receive these funds through this program. This might sound like free money, and I'm not against people getting into private schools and private school in general, but let's be clear, this is the opposite. Every dollar the federal government gives out in tax credits is a dollar no longer available to public schools. Some estimates say it could cost $3-4 billion per year, with a major risk of costing more if many people adopt into this program. Ironically, North Carolina already participates in something called Opportunity Scholarship, which is North Carolina's program funded by our state government that provides vouchers for families to pay for private schools. This is crazy, y'all, because research shows that this new federal program, if it becomes law, most families getting the new $1,700 tax voucher would already have their kids in private school. Another well-known fact, some private institutions don't have to accept your child, nor do they have to tell you why they didn't accept them. They may not be required to have accommodations in place. They may have little to no accountability with the state on what they choose to teach or how they spend their money. Some may have teachers that are not experienced. The corruption and discrimination under this process with no one checking is abhorrent. And I guess I am ending my speech. I have a couple more things to say, but I'd like to thank you.
Thank you. I feel so bad about having to stop someone who's so passionate, but we are trying to cover a lot of ground. So I know you have much more to say, and I'd love to talk with you personally myself. Thank you, thank you. Our next speaker is Angela Woods, and Angela is a Kings Mountain native who returned to Cleveland County, which is where I was born, by the way, in 2001. She graduated from the College of William and Mary and UNC Chapel Hill School of Law, and she has served in the Cumberland County DA's office, the Children's Law Center in Charlotte, the Cleveland County DSS, as an appointed district court judge in 2024. And currently she serves as a Pisco Legal Services poverty law attorney. So Angela, we welcome you.
Good to see you all. I haven't seen you all for a while. I saw you last on the campaign trail. But I did really appreciate all of your support. I am not an expert unless you use the definition that I'm from out of town. I'm from Kings Mountain. But I feel like a league of 10, just based on my years of experience and even this 6 months on the bench. So most of my experience comes from dealing with a population that requires Medicaid, that needs Medicaid, that continues to need Medicaid. So as a juvenile defense attorney, a lot of the kids that I came into contact with in Mecklenburg County had mental health issues. They needed Medicaid, they got Medicaid. As a DSS attorney for years, I dealt with more the child support side, but children need Medicaid and they need good health care. That's what Medicaid is. Most people who don't know think it's an entitlement, as if you don't deserve health care. But in every civilized country, usually health care is free, except here. And so, sick, or parents can't work because children are sick or they're sick, how can they learn when they're hungry because they're decreasing snack, or because they're sick and they can't go see a medical provider because they have no money? So my experience deals more with people that I've interacted with as clients. I had a lot of older adults who want to stay home, and part of that staying home is funded through Medicaid. It's called Cat D, so that they can stay in their residence, their home, in a community. Caretakers of children who need insurance for their children, and for years, North Carolina required the absent parents to provide insurance through their employers if it's available at a reasonable cost because the children were receiving Medicaid. A couple years ago, we stopped doing that. So then Medicaid was always the first primary coverage, where in the past they tried to keep it so it was maybe secondary if they could. So, and now I'm a poverty law attorney in Pittsburgh Legal Services, and I deal with domestic violence victims, as well as trying to prevent homelessness in Rutherford County and Polk counties. And so you may say, how does Medicaid really affect those? And so I'm supposed to talk about Medicaid, the changes with Medicaid, and then also kind of link in domestic violence programs and sexual assault programs. I am a board member of the Youth Prevention Council in Cleveland County, so it's a DV, what we call a DV, domestic violence program. And so in thinking about it, the big, beautiful bill acts has a very ugly effect on Medicaid. And pretty much everything else, I'm saying my name. And so think about DV or domestic violence victims. Usually the victim, whether it's male or female, is coming from a home where they have no control over finances, they have no control over decisions. And so if they're leaving that and going to a shelter for housing and aid, they need Medicaid. If they have children, those children need Medicaid. Maybe the offending partner was the one that controlled all the money. And so those people need Medicaid, and this changes in the bill will make a big difference. So 3.1 million North Carolina residents receive Medicaid. That usually includes disabled adults, children, as well as older adults. And most people, the narrative that was put out by the Republican Party was that, well, we want to make sure that the 27-year-old sitting on his mom's couch playing video games has to get up and work. So they put in a work requirement. Well, that's a fiction. The majority of Medicaid recipients are women and children and our older adults. So there's a very minute population that would even cover. And the narrative makes it sound as if we all say, oh, yes, everybody needs to work. You should get handouts. However, the narrative is false. And so most of the people, majority of the people are families, working families. So even though they say we want to get people back to work, a lot of these people are working. And so just looking at the statistics, so North Carolina expanded Medicaid December of 2023. There's been a dramatic increase. As I just looked at Lincoln County, their enrollment as an expansion, as of July 2025, was 4,364 people have enrolled. And I would imagine that a lot of people still don't know. Just dealing with the court system in Lincoln County, Cleveland counties, there's a lot of people who live under the poverty level, a lot of people who don't have much money, and they could probably benefit from that, because otherwise people go to ERs, the emergency room, because they can't be turned away. And usually that's after waiting months and months of dealing with whatever issue. And so then the hospital has to suck it up, the cost. But with the new big beautiful bill, they're not going to be funded like they have been. And their ability to get funds from Medicaid, especially rural hospitals, receive a lot of money from Medicaid, they won't have that. So that's going to trickle down to those of us who have insurance, and because they're going to have to pay for stuff, and insurance costs are going to go up. Because now you have more insurance companies who are going to have to cover, they want to make their money. They don't care about your pocketbook, they want to make their money, and so we're going to feel the hit. So that's why it's important. Wow, that goes fast. That's why it's important to really, really, really look at this. We have a chance to talk to North Carolina Tax the Budget, talk to your citizens, because with this increase, it appears that expansion of Medicaid is going to go away. And so you're going to have a lot of people who are uninsured, and it's going to affect people who are currently on Medicaid. They added these new benefits, and it's really, in my research looking at it, it's really geared towards expansion that was put under the ACA or Obamacare. They're going after that extension. The federal government does not want to have to pay for any of that. And so they put these work requirements in when most people already work. And this is people making $10 an hour working 40 hours. a family worker making one adult making $21 an hour. Nobody can live off of $10 an hour. And so I'll leave it at that. If you have questions.
Again, I'm sorry that we can't hear more from each of you, but we could be here all day. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, so we appreciate that. The next person to speak to us today is Keith Poston. And many of you may know Keith. Keith is the executive director of the Heston House of Hope that serves our unsheltered community in Lincolnton and Lincoln County. And he has more than 20 years of experience working in the nonprofit sector. He's also been a candidate for the Lincoln County School Board and currently serves on several school advisory committees. He's focused on improving school funding and student support. He's a dedicated father and husband, consistently working to improve our neighborhoods and the lives of children throughout our community. Let's welcome Keith.
Thank you. Tonight. So thank you guys all for being here. My topic is homelessness. And a couple weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago, there was an executive order about homelessness. So what I want to share is that obviously we understand the decrease in affordable housing and the increase in inflation, the standard of living has changed, right? The rural poor are not able to make ends meet. Right? So even the smallest unexpected events in someone's life is devastating. It's a change, right? I don't want to talk about what my personal opinions are about it, but the facts of what I look at, what I see as the director of a homeless shelter. Okay? The old idea that people are homeless just because they're lazy, it's not true, right? Firsthand, I've seen in our facility, grandmothers, families, individuals come in because they've had a devastating, traumatic thing happen in their life. And they find themselves without a job, home loss, and nowhere to go. So they end up with those steps to Heston House of Hope, which we're very fortunate of. So in the order about homelessness, there's a debate about what used to be what we consider the old school way of things, right? What we look at and go, it's just common sense. If we do this, they'll do this, they'll be okay. Homelessness is complicated. It's not common sense, right? Back in 2004, right, our leader at the time put into a federal order, federal policy of housing first. Not Obama, not Biden, not Clinton, 2004. That was George Bush. He put into order housing first. So you have housing first versus treatment-based programs first. And it works a little bit of both ways. However, what we have to understand is that the statistics show that housing first allows folks, our homeless, to be stable 88% of the time, right? Now, let's not forget, there's still substance abuse, homelessness issues, mental health. But 88% of the time, if you house them first to get them stable, they're able to be stable and survive. And so what we look at and what we see at Heston House is this, and I tell people all the time, inside of our facility, it's a fantasy world. Right? So they go out that door and get into the real world. However, inside of our facility, there's love, there's patience, there's empathy, and there's no judgment. So I'm not going to talk about you, I'm going to talk about me. Right? Inside of some of our, and outside of our homes, in our families, in our neighborhoods, you have family, friends, people you know with mental health issues, substance abuse, homelessness. And a lot of times, we've turned our back to we've done all we feel like we can do to help them, and they just don't want to do what we want them to do. It's complicated. That's why inside of our facility, it's a fantasy world. Those three things are those things I told you about: love, empathy, patience, and no judgment is what helps us get back on track to stable living. That's what we're about. We should be helping our neighbors. Don't get me wrong. There's a difference between those that are vagrants and those that are just simply experiencing homelessness. There is a difference. All right? Those that are on the doorsteps of businesses, leaving trash, not tearing up stuff, that's the difference. All right? Doesn't mean we shouldn't help them, but there's a difference. And so inside of our facility, and what we do is try to help them get back to that stable living. So again, with the order that was last couple weeks ago that was presented, the focus is about punishment, right? If we punish them, make them feel the pain, they're gonna change. It's not the case. Not the case at all, right? So if we work together, our nation is divided politically, culturally, spiritually, but as a community, we can choose to work together. We can choose to help our neighbors, because believe it or not, they are our neighbors. At Henson House, when folks, they come to us, we are a clean and sober facility, right? So they have to be clean and sober to get in. That takes a little bit of work. It's about accountability. They're there for 4 to 6 months and sometimes longer. And what happens is, we just love them. We stand in the gap, we walk hand in hand, and we help them get back to a stable living condition. And you know what happens after that? They become your neighbors that you didn't know they went through this. They're taxpayers, so they're paying their taxes, right? They're keeping their yard clean. They're not causing problems. They're like you and I. And all we're asking for is for us as a community, as a state, as a nation, to be empathetic and consider what it takes. Because the old adage is, well, one paycheck away. It could be you, it could be me. This is true. We've seen it time and time again. But on the other end of it, what's so great is what comes out of it. When they're able to get back to their community. Right now, inside of Henson House of Hope, we have 22 individuals. On a normal month, right? On a normal, let's go on 4 to 6 months. On the average, 65% of our residents work. They get up every morning and go to work, just like you and I. The problem is they can't afford housing. They can't afford $1,600 a month, $1,700 a month. Right, so I hope that you will ask a lot more questions. We have a lot more to say, but my time is up.
Oh my, there are so many issues. Our next person to speak to us is Greg McBride. Greg's been married for 36 years. He's the father of 3 highly accomplished children. He's semi-retired, which makes me a little jealous. Greg is a former Reagan Republican, but is now a Democrat. And he has run for public office, and he cares deeply about the direction in which our country is headed. I also happen to know he's a pretty good chef if you ever get a chance to take some of his food. So, Greg, go ahead and speak from there or here wherever you'd like to be.
All right. Again, my name's Greg McBride. I'm 61 years old. I was asked to speak on this topic, and I don't know what makes me an expert, other than the fact I have 3 children. I have a straight child, gay child, and a non-binary queer child. Now, if I was an expert, I could tell you what all that means. I can't. What I can tell you is it makes no difference if they're a child. I've got this long speech, I can give you all the numbers, and I looked it up, and it was a read, 9.3% of the US population today, 3 days ago, identifies as in the LGBTQ group. 23% of Gen Z, now don't ask me who that is. That's a lot of people. That's 30 million people. 9% is 30 million people. That's not just, you can't just push them behind a tree and hide. That's what people want to do. That's where we're at. And that's a lot of the legislation that's gone down. I know y'all all remember the HB2 fiasco. And they passed that legislation about bathrooms. It was the bathroom bill. They got a lot of kickback. And it really helped lose McCrory the governorship. Thank you, Jesus. But I promise you, they have not given up on that. They have not given up on that. And they're not, what they've done is learned, and they're not going to come at it head on. They're going to start to chip away. They've got a bill out. One of the ones that our local representative, who is a trained scientist, not only voted for, but voted to override the governor's veto. I forget the name of it. It's to prevent the sexual exploitation of women and minors. That sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Doesn't it sound like something great? Yeah. That limits government spending on any kind of transgender operations, medications, includes, basically it comes out and says there's only 2 sexes. Well, that's not true. That's not medically true. It's a gray, there's a whole various rainbow. There's from one end to the other. That's how they do it. They're just going to do end arounds. They're going to, come in. It's going to have happy, shiny faces and names on these bills, and it's going to keep taking. And the other question that you have to think about is, why all of a sudden is it transgender? Because they're easy. Because they're not, they don't usually have the same support system. I can't tell you how many of my kids' friends are, their parents stop support. And it's hard, and all they need is a little support. So that's the gist of my speech. Be an advocate. You don't have to adopt anybody. Go to a pride event. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to just be there. Just support. There's some great groups out there. Trevor Project, the ACLU has some great things going on. Just participate. Show people, because that's the thing. These are the LGBT community are the weak. When you watch National Geographic and you see the wolves hunting the elk, they go after the weak, the slower, the less protected. That's why that's done. It's a smoke and mirror show, and it's wrong, and we all know it's wrong, and it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to be there for folks like these. They don't deserve how they're being treated. And I guess that's about it.
Thank you, Greg, for sharing all of that. And I will say, just this is my opinion, but I think it's true. It's not your gay uncle that you need to be worried about being a pedophile. Just saying. It's not. Okay. Our next person to speak is Dave Shelton. And Dave has lived in Louisiana for 35 years. He's been married for 47 years. And he got interested in energy in high school back in 1974 during the oil shortage. And you might remember the long lines at the gas pump if you're old enough. During his 4 years as a professional soccer player, he started a company in the energy conservation business. And the company's core business was installing more efficient lighting systems and other devices that could lower electric bills. And then after retiring from soccer, he was motivated to learn more about sophisticated computerized equipment. And so he went to work with Arthur Anderson as a consultant, and then worked with IBM, Cisco, VMware, Palo Alto Networks. And Dave and Mary will speak later, they have installed solar systems on their last 2 houses. So let's hear right now from Dave.
Can we do the old reclaim time? You know, you go. I also want to define expert. When I left the soccer field, I played 4 years, and when I got to Arthur Anderson, they had a big training program. I was a fish out of water. I did training twice a day for 4 years. I got there, I'll never forget, the senior partner came right when we passed our test and said, okay, consulting's not that hard, just state the obvious with a look at discovery. So that's my definition of expert. So I got interested in energy because in high school, and it's a shame, first of all, I forgot, I wanted to thank people that put this on. This is so critical because I don't think the average person knows what's going on. They just don't. And I think if they did, we wouldn't be here. So anyway, I think it's very important, and I appreciate all the folks that are working with this. I just wish there were more young people there, because in '74, we had gas lines where you waited an hour sometimes. If your last number on your license plate was odd, you could buy gas on one day if it was even. Yeah, that's true. And then it happened again in '79. It's funny because I played for a very famous Dutch coach. And whenever a player was late, especially with the Dutch, everyone would always say, wow, the gas lines, you know, the excuse for being late training. And then you get fined if you're late. Well, the Dutch coach, he's pretty clever. He said in Holland it's because the bridge is up. Here it's because of the gas lines. Enough of the jokes, I'll stay on topic. So I started this company. It wasn't very sophisticated equipment. I went to work at Arthur Anderson because I want to learn about computers. And then I really started drilling, and then Mary and I decided to put our first solar system on when the incentives came along. And we put our first system on, it was 4 kW system. We paid about the same as we paid for our last system. We didn't cover our full electrical requirements, but we did pretty good. The return, you know, when you buy something like that, you look at the return, it was about 3-4% with the incentives. Then the next, when we moved here about 6 years ago, I wanted to put a system on here. So I spent the same amount of money, and this is critical, and we put on a 10 kW system. That's a 250% increase in power. And I paid the same price with incentives, okay, with incentives. And last year, and I get some numbers in in 2022, and I have this is data and facts. I don't deal in he said and they said. I can show you, anyone who wants to see it, I have an app on my phone and where I pull this off of. I produce, I said, Mary and I produced, the solar system produced, an extra 1 million watt hours of power that we pushed into the grid. We didn't use it. And then this last year, we broke about even because I got an EV. So every kilowatt hour that we use in our house and our EV, we produce on our roof, okay? So these things do work. I've had people, when we had the big hoo-ha when we first moved here about the coal ash, so more people would put solar on the roof, we wouldn't have coal ash problem. We're going to spend $1 gazillion moving it away. And I had someone come back to me and say it's a hoax. Well, this is data. I'm giving you data. So, the ROI on solar continues to get better every year because the price of power goes up. Mine is fixed, because I've already invested in the plant, so to speak. And people don't understand that. I'm amazed. You walk around the golf course and you see in Denver, and you see all these houses. They could easily cover their electric bill. So Mary's and my electric bill for the last 6 years has been $15. It's the interchange. That's it. We're all electric. We have no gas in the house. I mean, we added an EV because I was pushing it into the grid and I decided to use it. So these are the facts. So, if you go to the next slide, please. The guy that put in the system, he put in both my systems in Raleigh and here. He is out of Morrisville near Raleigh. And it was started by a couple that had worked for Burt's Bees. They cashed out and they sold out. And they decided to start an installation, solar and do good for society. It's been in business about, I want to say 20, 25 years. Graham Alexander he's bought into it. They retired. And he got together a co-op. There's a co-op across the country, and they went and visited Washington and met, and this is recent. He was interviewed recently by Wall Street Journal. And just so you know, Wall Street Journal, Rupert Murdoch, Fox News. So they interviewed him. And what is asked of them was simple. Give me 3 more years. Don't end it. You give me 3 years, and people will buy it because you'd be dumb not to buy it. You know, you look at my case, I don't have an electric bill. And I have an actual return on investment that's pretty good and keeps getting better. Well, I'm going to, Mary's speaking after me, and I think she is. But I don't want to steal her time, so I'll get in trouble. So I'm going to end it here. I hope there's some questions about why I can I'm so convinced that good government policy can bring in technology. And there's a perfect example. I won't go into the details now. If someone wants to hear it later, I'll bring it up. But LED bulbs, I used to work with Cree when I was at IBM. I know LED bulbs. I know it happened. And that's the best example of what could happen with solar. And we're going to lose a lot of jobs because they're cutting this. Anyway, thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much, Dave. And next up, we have Tom and Betty Ford. I don't know if both of you are speaking or just one of you, but you can do it however you like. But let me tell you just a little bit about them. Betty and Tom they're entrepreneurs and business owners here in downtown Lincoln. Betty owns and operates Treasures on Main, and it's an antique and vintage furnishing store. She's also the executive director of the Downtown Development Association of Lincoln and serves on the Lincoln Cultural Center Board of Trustees. Now, Tom owns and operates Trident Trikes, which designs and manufactures recumbent trikes sold worldwide and has extensive import-export experience. And he currently serves on the Lincoln Tourism Development Authority, and he's previously run for Lincoln City Council. So you all can come up here or both of you. No, you have to divide the time.
Hey everybody, so I did not know I was speaking here, so I just jotted down some notes of the county property. But I'm Tom Thor, I've been in Lincoln since the early 1980s. I run Trident Trikes, which we actually manufacture recumbent trikes. We ship and worldwide. We do manufacture in China, and this is kind of my topic now. Is just importing and China in particular. That's not hard to here. And again, many years importing stuff. I do some importing from the city. I don't know if you guys hold on to a little train that runs around town here. I did bring that into the city. And there's 2 air-conditioned toilet units that are going to be all the live enterprise and all the downtown events that just came in the last few weeks. But for tariffs, You know, and we do manufacture in China, I know they say it's a 30% tariff, now, that's just a little window that everybody has, but it really isn't 30%. We pay 30% in addition to what the existing tariffs are. And on my product, it's 11%, and then there's an additional 25% made in China penalty, and then there's another 20% fentanyl tariff that they put on Chinese kids. So we are paying, you know, it's close to 70% right now. And it's just, we just brought a container that came in last week, and the tariff bill is exorbitant, and we had our first price increase in 4 years, just because of this. So, you know, it's, we all wonder who pays, and obviously, we're the ones who are paying for all this. And I just briefly want to talk about China in particular. I've been there many, many times. You speak past the Mandarin. And their priorities are just different from us. And they've already got us beat. They think much longer term than we do. But when you go to China, it's perfectly clean. Everybody has free healthcare. There are no homeless people. There are no hungry people. Safest place on earth, and they really don't have a social security system, you know, like we do. And the question is, how can they do it if we can't? And again, it's priorities. Instead of all the money going for defense and tax cuts for, you know, for wealthy people, they prioritize infrastructure, and the infrastructure there is just crazy. There are high-speed rail everywhere in the country. And the other thing is just education. They, in China, because of the one-child policy, that they don't have as many college-age kids per capita as we do, but they graduate 17 times more STEM students than we do. And again, they're looking for the long term. And, you know, and the other thing about tariffs, they just really haven't hit us yet. And you know, it's just now starting to come in. I know we brought a lot of product in, you know, everybody knew the tariffs were coming. So we saw our warehouses in Charlotte, and we stocked it, you know, every penny we could save up, we ordered product in, that came in January. But it's starting to run out now, and this is true with a lot of other countries that I know of. So, and even if we could bring manufacturing back to the US, and I don't know if we can, the problem is right now we don't make anything. Well, we make very few things. I know our product, there's nobody in the US making them. And while tariffs may have been a good thing 25 years ago, that ship is long sailed. And you know, we are making all our competitors better because of it. And you know, and again, even if we could do it, it would take decades to bring us back up to speed. Just, you know, building factories, and even if we could build them, the cost of manufacturing in the US is much, much higher than in developing countries, so we have to pay a lot more. And obviously you know, we don't have enough workers. The unemployment rate now is in the 4% range. And we're deporting, you know, a lot of the people who would be the ideal people to fill these jobs. So that's, you know, the other thing is, and I know we're talking about energy, but this is again where China has just surpassed us in green energy. You go there, all the vehicles are electric now. I remember when I first went to China, which was 20 years ago, it was really polluted. There are no more gas scooters, and all scooters have to be electric now. And it's just completely clean. The air is clean. And again, they all got electric. Actually, my wife and I both drive electric cars too, so we're coming in on that too. But that's about the plan. So,
Debbie, did you have anything to add?
They always said that I talked to myself.
Sorry. But Betty might be someone some of you folks might want to talk to as well after this. So folks, moving right along, I believe we are to our last speaker, Mary. We've saved you for last. And like I said before, she and David have been married for 47 years, lived in North Carolina for 35 years. She is a retired CPA working for Arthur Anderson, and she and Dave raised 3 successful professionals. Mary stepped down after 2 years as the chair of Lincoln County Democratic Party recently, where she re-energized the party and led the very successful Get Out the Vote campaign in Lincoln County. Her motto is, "I believe nothing in this country will change without informed voters." She plays tournament tennis and loves to read. And she gave us her best book for 2025 so far. It's Apple in China, The Capture of the World's Greatest Company by Patrick McGee. And I looked that up. It does look like an interesting read that we might want to follow on. So I invite you to speak from there or wherever you want to speak. And Mary?
This is on.
Is this on?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming, and it is so important that we become informed. I appreciate that, and I know we say the most exciting topic for last. This is going to be about taxes. So rub them goosebumps, because here we go. And the day that this bill was signed, you all, every single one of you, took on a $9,000 debt. That's what it totals. They talk about the debt that we incurred. Well, we all incurred it, and it's gonna cost us each $9,000. So enjoy the benefits of a big, beautiful bill. This is just a graph that kind of shows very simply by quintile who will benefit from the big, beautiful bill, which actually all of us do, don't we? So that guy down there in the lowest quintile, he gets a $150 break for that $9,000 debt that he took on. But these guys up here get a $75,000 break on their taxes. And this is like, this right here, that's like up to $20,000 in income. The second quintile, it puts you at about 52, then you go up to about 80. Fourth quintile, I think, was 122. So, and then it just goes up. So the wealthy are benefiting for sure. And in the Wall Street Journal this morning, there was I couldn't have said it in because I'd already turned in my diagrams, but the tech companies, because of the corporate tax laws, one of them lets you expense capital expenditures. So Alphabet, which is Google, they're going to benefit $18 billion in 1 year. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard the Republicans talk about fraud, abuse, and waste. That's their tagline now. Every one of them that gets on TV, fraud, abuse, and waste, like those guys that are homeless, fraud, abuse, and waste. Well, let me tell you, is that not abuse of the system? No wonder these guys lined up behind Trump's hind end on inauguration, because that's what they walked away with. We've got 18 billion, 16 billion for Amazon, 12 billion for Microsoft, and Zuckerberg gets over 10 billion. So you can all feel good for those guys, okay? We can go on to the next slide, please. Okay, I'm gonna look at just Lincoln County, okay, because I've already talked about national. We've got 2 families here. We've got Lake House family. They own rental houses. They have 2 kids, Summer Lake House and Bo Lake House. The parents spend all of their time on the rental houses. They receive rents of about $500,000. They have 25 homes. And the kids are going to attend private school. Dock Builder family, they get W-2s. Mr. Dock Builder gets 26 bucks an hour, and that's average. I've looked all these numbers up. So he's making about $52,000 a year. Mrs. Dock Builder is actually a cashier at Food Lion. She gets $180. She pays $180 for her health insurance, but Mr. Dock Builder pays through Obamacare for his 2 kids and himself. And those 2 kids will attend public school. So we can go on to the next slide, please. Okay, so let's look at the Lake House family. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm CPA retired, so I'll try and talk normal.
Jump off.
Exactly, don't go to sleep. So they have, the first column is their taxable income, which is what they're gonna be taxed on. The right-hand column is the cash they're taking in. So the left-hand column, they have their rental income, they have property taxes, insurance, repairs, depreciation, which is over time. That's not cash that's taken away, that's just an expense they get to take. Oh, and by the way, they decided they wanted to buy an automobile. So they get to write the whole thing off if it's under $70,000, okay? So that reduces their taxable income. On top of, and that was in the big beautiful bill, in blue are the things that are special. Then there's the qualified business income deduction, so you take their business income, which was 200, and then they get 20% just thrown out the window, okay? Let's just thank them for being in business. So that's another 40,000 that comes off. No, it's because they have a qualified business. A lot of things can be qualified businesses. So that gives them a taxable, they're gonna be taxed on $160,000 of the $500,000. But the cash they took home was $311,000. So we can move on to Mr. Dock Builder. Let's look at his complicated, oh gosh, look at him, W-2s. That is their modified adjusted gross income is $78,500, okay. So now let's go on to compare the two side by side. Okay, so now when they go to do their taxes, Lake House family, their modified adjusted gross income is $160,000. Dock Builders is $78,500. Now, we all can itemize deductions, or we can add up all the deductions that are considered itemized and take those. Well, Dock Builder, to the credit of the big beautiful bill, they did increase the itemized deductions. It's not all bad, so they get $31,500. But the Lake House folks, their itemized deductions add up to more than that, because they're gonna take their state income tax, which now they can do. They used to not be able to do that. Oh, I did it. Oh. They're gonna take their interest, they're gonna take their property tax, and, oh, by the way, they bought 10 shares of Berkshire Hathaway B stocks back in 1990 for $47 a share, and they're gonna donate that because they're good-hearted people. So they get to deduct $47,000 off their taxable income. So if you compare their taxable income to Dock Builder, and then the tax, they both get the tax credit, which again, that went up a little bit. That went up $200 per child. Oh, and by the way, these private school folks, they're taking North Carolina voucher money, and we get to pay, all of us, get to pay, our tax dollars go towards sending their kids to private school. Even though they make $500,000, they get $6,800. Next, and this guy, Dock Builder, he lost out, so he's gonna pay $763. Oh, the Lake House people, they have to pay $1,029. And this guy lost some of his Obamacare, so he's actually in the hole big time, because $2,675, he was getting tax credits from Obamacare, those are gone. So we can go on to the next slide, please. So this is just kind of a summary. So Trump said he was gonna eliminate taxes on Social Security. He didn't do it. He ended up saying $6,000 will be exempted. So we are all still paying Social Security tax. We're doing that. He said there was gonna be no tax on overtime pay. That there's all these little things that it kind of hit on it, but not really. No tax on tip income. That's limited, I think, to $25,000 in tips, and then that goes away. They did increase the child tax credit to $2,200. The student loans, that's totally messed up. But he did extend the tax rates are permanent. He did increase the standard deduction.
Oh, and he did the Trump accounts. Anybody who's lucky enough to have a baby this year, you get $1,000. And I propose that we, because those are called Trump accounts, I think we should call Social Security the Roosevelt account, because that's who passed that program. And those Trump accounts, take the money and run. Take the 1,000, run, don't do anything else with it. Leave it there and let it grow, because it's gonna be taxed when you pull it out when they're 60 years old. Put it in 529s or 401ks, it's a better deal, but, and I think that was my last slide.
Wow, that is a lot of information, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, no, it was all good, and we probably also talk to you later as well. As well. Yeah. This part of the program, we're gonna attempt to answer some questions or shed some light or have some clarifying questions. And I have a few cards I'm gonna start with, and I've got one that is an anonymous one, and I'm gonna read it first. And then after that, I'm gonna try to tell 2 or 3 people who are next, so you can be ready. We're gonna take 2 of these microphones and hand them down to folks in front. And actually, yeah, thank you. You just hand those to Vicki. Okay. So, so that everyone can hear your question, but I'm gonna start with this one that has their name, and then Katie Siebert. Are you here? Yeah. Okay, all right. So you'll be after I do this, so if you wanna go ahead and come down this way, and then after her, John Costanova, and then Mary after that. So and then I'll add to it later, just so y'all know. Okay, so this first question, the incentives were, it's about clean energy. The incentives were removed from solar. What effect might this have, and when is solar investment going to be able to stand on its own without rebates? And I'm not sure if you covered a little bit of that, but maybe, and I mean, there's a mic there.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Yeah.
I'm glad this slide put up, because this is real important, because so often we hear this, that they say, well, why can't it stand on its own? First of all, oil is to stand on its own. We spend how much on keeping the Strait of Hormuz open? I mean, untold amount. And there's so many other things. If we hadn't had, as a society, pushed electric and phone out to the rural areas, they would have never gotten them, because it wouldn't have been affordable. So let's be clear about something. There are some government programs that are very valid and very useful. And I'm going to show you one that I think mirrors solar, and it's gone. And so the next time you hear someone say, well, it should stand on its own, it would if you get it over the hump. So if you could put up the slides as best way to understand, keep going. Next. Next one. Okay, so I think everyone would agree it'd be a fool to buy an incandescent bulb. Incandescent bulbs, when you look at the energy for the light, it's 90% goes into heat. And that's because it shows the full spectrum. With LEDs, they can put the energy into what we can visibly see as light. That's the difference, okay? So it has exceptional lifespan. I mean, and I've looked at all these numbers. I'm very careful, because I do know if you're wrong once, you're wrong. So it's between 25, and we all have different experiences, but let's all agree, it lasts longer than incandescent bulbs. Lower lifetime costs, it's obvious, the power is dramatic. They would say we would need to build, I don't know the number, how many additional power plants have we not moved to LED lights? Enormous. So the payback is huge. Next slide, please. And the environmental benefits are obvious. I'm not going to go through this, but these were some of the government policies that made it possible. Next slide, please. This is the key slide to me. So you got a chicken and egg problem. So in Cree, in Raleigh, invented the LED light bulb. I was working with them at the time. They were very expensive, right? No one would buy an LED bulb because you could go buy an incandescent bulb for next to nothing. Even though it lasted less, used more power, you didn't care because you didn't have the money to spend and swap them out. So what happened is they call it the technology, and I've been in technology most of my career. They call it crossing the chasm. And you've got to cross this chasm to where this new technology becomes affordable. So you have to incent it to get across that chasm. So you get to market inertia when you get enough production that the costs drop. Electronics are the prime example. Computers used to be, the phones we all have, I used to sell $10 million mainframes. That phone is more powerful than the room full of stuff I used to sell back in '86. And so initial high cost is the problem. Next slide, and I'm almost done here. So we crossed about 2014, when you would be a fool to buy an incandescent. And that was all directly related to the incentives that were put in by the government. And what bothers me is when Graham went to our local our politicians, he said, I don't need the 7 years of the investment that President Biden made. I need 3 more years, and then people, just like LED bulbs, would be a fool not to. And it's shameful. So anyway, I hope that answers the question of why it's not staying on. We're so close, and now, as was pointed out, China's getting all of us because they're way ahead. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, Katie, if you would, make your way to the mic and, ask your question.
It's not really a question, it's more of a charge to everybody here. I'm Katie, I'm a single mom, these are my 2 beautiful kids. We came from a birthday party, so we're a little quarantined, but that's okay. It's important to be here. I think it's by design. I heard somebody say that people don't have good information. That is by design. That is because we are taught not to trust the media, right? And so since 2016, I have not turned on a single news channel. And I know some of you in the room are going, where do you get your news? I get them from podcasts, I get them from social media, with variants. And I was stuck. The whole Trump presidency completely stuck me, and I didn't know what to do with myself. So I heard something that I wanted to pass along to everybody here. I'm a big fan of a podcast called We Can Do Hard Things. If you're also a podcaster, feel free to shout out. And Glennon Doyle is one of the people of that podcast, and she shared this in one of her episodes. She said, I want you to think of a river of hope, and there's a side bank. There's a lot of people that are sitting on the side bank who don't know how to mobilize. There's people who are on these ships, think of them as 5 or 6 different ships, immigration, homelessness, LGBTQ+, you name it. There's lots of ships on this river. And then there's people who are walking away from the river. Those actually are few and far between. Those people walking away from the river are less than the people sitting on the side who don't know what to do. Generationally, millennial, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and I can help you with that. Somebody struggled with that. I can help you with that. They have not had to experience this kind of democracy before, this democracy challenge. So the worst that our generation has gone through, that we've experienced as adults, is the pandemic. And you can imagine how difficult that was for a majority of the generation. So my ask to you is, if you're on one of those ships and you're participating, awesome. When someone gets on that ship, don't shame them. Don't assume that they should have known the information. Welcome them, love them, hug them. We need them, okay? And if they're on the side and they don't get on the ship when you expect them to, don't shame them. Love them, wrap your arms around them, because we need more people. And generationally, younger people do not know what is going on in this country, and they don't want to be told. They want to know by the way that they organically find out. So be that source for them in kindness, and help them understand what's affecting their neighbors. Help them understand what is affecting people that they and their family, and how that's going to impact them at the end of the day.
Thank you, Katie. John, are you near a microphone? Okay, Mark. Go ahead. Okay.
I'll come up so everybody can see me. You don't mind?
I'm sorry,
Well, I don't have any questions or comments on the big open bill. Since the last election, I've taken a break from politics. Instead, I've immersed myself in the misery of being a New York Yankee fan in 2020. And as far as making errors this summer, the Yankees are trying to keep up with the Republicans. Most everyone in this room understood that if elected, Trump and his administration would enact Project 2025. And looking into this crowd, I feel confident that we all work hard to get Democrats elected to stop Trump and the complicit Republicans in Congress. With the help of gerrymandering and uncontested seats here in North Carolina and nationally, the Democrats lost seats in Congress. And now Trump continues to chip away at our precious norms, laws, and values. So for now, I'm looking for local and state and national Democrats who are not talking about Trump, his cronies, or destructive, regressive Republican policies. I'm listening for Democrat leaders with creative and refreshing ideas about making housing, healthcare, and everyday family necessities more affordable. I want to hear about raising the minimum wage, improving public education, affordable college tuitions, and protecting our planet. Let's stay away from bickering culture wars, and let's talk about making this country and the lives of all Americans better. I'm listening. I haven't heard the voice yet. Thank you.
Hey, Mary. And you can, wherever you want to speak from there.
I was,
Yeah.
is it on?
That's on. Yes.
It's on. I have a teacher voice, so I could use that. My name is Mary Morrison. We moved here to Lincoln County in 1990. I'm an Air Force brat. My dad was in the Air Force for 25 years, and I traveled the world, raised 5 kids here. 3 of my boys joined the service. I have relatives buried in cemeteries around here that go back to the War of Independence. We didn't have a veteran, whatever, but I know there's a lot of you. I see a Vietnam veteran hat over there, okay? Right now, veterans are my passion, one of them. Our veterans are facing adversity. Since January of 25, the VA has recorded thousands of losses. Over 700 physicians, 2,500 nursing personnel, and over 700 mental health workers. These are services for PTSD. I lost my son when he came home from Afghanistan. They are mental, physical, in addition to these cuts, veterans are being severely impacted by cuts to Medicaid and SNAP benefits. There are many who rely on these and are barely making it paycheck to paycheck. So my question, if anybody wants to respond, what can we do to support our men and women who have served this country and are suffering from these administration cuts?
My name is Vicki Rowan, and my late husband, was a Vietnam veteran and a retired Air Force officer. You notice that we don't have anybody from the VA speaking today. It wasn't because I didn't try. My husband and I worked as volunteers for the VA, and he worked part-time for the VA for a short time before he died. And it's worse than even Mary makes it out. I talked to friends of mine who still work at the VA. They are scared to death. They've already had one round of layoffs, and they don't know when the next one is coming, and they're afraid to say anything publicly or even privately, as long as there's a VA employee sitting anywhere close to them, because they're afraid they're going to get ratted out and fired. they have lost 2,000 employees in the mental health field just in June. Over all of 7,000 since the first of the year. Nurses, doctors, mental health workers, social workers, nurses, both registered and licensed. Yes, and wait times are getting longer. But in answer to Mary's question, there is nothing we can do other than complain to Tom Tillis, Ted Brady, and Pat Harrigan. No, at least 2 out of the 3 aren't going to listen to you, even though Mr. Harrigan is a West Point graduate. And vote next year, because 2 of the 3 people I just named are running for re-election. Well, excuse me, Tillis is not running for re-election, but somebody will be running for that spot. But I don't know that there's anything that we can do other than support our vets. And Medicaid, I don't know how many people have been watching the slides up here, but something like 40% of vets depend on Medicare, Medicaid, or some other form of assisted health care, not counting the ones that are eligible for Veterans Administration. And I don't know whether you know, but not everybody who served is eligible for the VA. Now, my husband was, but most people who didn't retire and don't have service-connected disabilities aren't. So I hate to be the bearer of bad tidings, but there's not a great deal we can do except complain and vote.
Hey, can I piggyback on something that you just said?
If you wait just a minute, and I'll start.
Yeah, I was, at the end, I didn't get to this part, but I was gonna say, vote for responsible leaders, thank you. Attend local school board meetings, run for office, like the school board, be informed, make your voice heard, show up to things like this, show up to protests, make signs, get together, talk to people. What that woman said over there, don't shun someone because they didn't have the same political views you did, or we think that they should have known better. We need all the help we can get. We need to actually be persuasive, because the amount of disinformation coming at us is incredible, and it's effective. It's effective. What are we gonna do about this except be opening and welcome and informed as much as we can? So we can do something. We're doing it right now. We're here. This is the start. I would like to see every seat filled in this place the next time we have one of these. We have the people that come here, show up, ask questions, learn. Don't just swallow what's put out there for you. So we are going to work for this, and we are going to make it. Democracy is going to make it. Yeah, our forefathers didn't see this, this kind of thing happening, but we're going to make it. Democracy will survive this challenge, and they're going to look back on this time and be like, woo, it's been crazy to live then.
Thank you so much. Did you take the mic over? Yeah, and while Christine is going to speak, I'm going to ask for Ellie, and let's see who we have, Liz and Betty, and then Kimberly. So we'll go in that order, so y'all know. Okay, go ahead, Christine.
Okay, guys, I don't know if any of you have heard about this, but going back to the VA, our veterans are in a bad way. My husband works for the VA. And a lot of people don't know that this week, Trump has decided to negate the contract that was just recently made with the VA workers. And a lot of the VA workers are former veterans. And he has just negated their contract. So my thought is, what's next?
Are we gonna stand up as far as like, are other unions gonna support them? What's gonna happen? Is he then going to go, okay, if you work for the VA, you have insurance, so now you don't get any VA benefits? But yeah, he just negated a contract that was just made closer to the first of the year. And he just said that contract's no good.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay. Okay, Ellie, if you can find your way to a microphone. You got it? Okay, great. Go ahead.
My question is for the representative who's not here, but I hope he's enjoying a taxpayer-funded vacation.
Right.
And it's about healthcare, specifically the right of women and girls to life-saving reproductive care. I moved to North Carolina in 2001, had my daughter in 2002, and a couple of years later was pregnant and went to the doctor for a 12-week ultrasound and was told that the fetus was in distress, would not survive, and that it might start the miscarry, but I didn't. So I went back, the fetus was dead, the doctor told me I could let nature take its course, but the risk was sepsis, which will kill you, or complications that would render me infertile. So that was a no-brainer. We scheduled D&C, which is an abortion, and about 18 months later, I had my son, who is taken into Chapel Hill for his sophomore year tomorrow. So my story had a happy ending, but I teach English online and have students all over the country, and one of them wrote about how she's 12 weeks pregnant, her fetus is dead, she lives in a red state with restrictive abortion laws, and she's scared because the doctor won't do it. And she's worried, she has a child, she's worried about feeding her child motherless, or not being able to have children in the future. And this eats me up, and this is one of the reasons I have trouble sleeping at night. All the other stories I hear about, girls in states who are forced to have their rapist baby, and my question for my representatives is this, what are you going to do to make sure that the women and girls in this state have access and the right to life-saving reproductive care? I had 21 years ago.
I suggest we all ask our representatives some of these questions. Yes.
Back to what she just said. So in my research, what this bill does, Planned Parenthood does more than abortions. And they want to make that a story that that's all they do, but they provide a lot of care to women in the United States. And so this plan now will not allow Medicaid to cover other services like STI screening, Pap smears, and all of that, breast cancer screening, prenatal care for a year. So that means 1 in 3 Planned Parenthoods is likely to close because majority of their patients receive Medicaid. And so now they can't go to Planned Parenthood to get the services that they need for just, I think that's basic, decent services for women. And so the closest one to Lincolnton is Charlotte. And so your question is an excellent question because it appears that they don't care about women, they don't care about children, they don't care about veterans, but until we get the information out, because I had no clue, and it was a deep dive into Medicaid for this, but if we don't get the information out, then people won't know that veterans are being treated terribly. Most people call themselves, we applaud veterans. And I won't talk about the commander-in-chief who has never had respect for veterans, but the information needs to go out. Tell your friend, put it on Facebook, put it everywhere you can, even about Medicaid, because even if you don't agree with abortions, most people agree with basic, decent insurance and coverage for people who want to take care of themselves and be responsible for their bodies. So.
Thank you, Angela, I appreciate that. Yes, can you get a mic to?
Sorry, well, I'm Ashley Bell. I'm running for 10th District House of Representatives. First is Pat Harrigan. I'm also a PA. Okay. I'm also a PA. I've been a PA for 14 years. I've also been an educator for 20 years. And I have worked in women's health and I work in the ER. And I have also been in that exact situation on the provider side. I can tell you if somebody comes in my ER and they need a DNC, they're going to get me or have to ship them to another state, which I have done before. The problem that we are facing on the provider side is that a lot of states have a clause in their abortion bills or whatever that actually allows prosecution of medical professionals for providing timely and necessary health care. That's the case in Florida, I think it's the case in Texas, I don't think it's the case in North Carolina, but this is unacceptable. Nothing about medicine need to get out of our exam rooms. They are killing people. And not only with abortion, but the bill that was just vetoed and then put into effect about transgender healthcare now allows people to prosecute people for providing transgender healthcare. So and I provide transgender healthcare. I do this every single day. So I would be at risk of getting prosecuted. Again, we need to get these people who know nothing about medicine out of our exam rooms. And we also need to put into effect bills that provide immunity to medical professionals for providing necessary, timely, basic health care. I mean, that's what we're gonna do.
Thank you. All right, was there someone else? No, okay, I thought I saw something.
Thank you, Evan.
I'm Harry Boyd, also 10th Congressional U.S. House District, and medical decisions should be between the doctor and the patient, not the guys in legislatures and brawling, not the guys in Congress. And if you go to Congress, you support what their decisions, their professions. And it's not a business as far as like, just telling people what to do with their bodies. That's why I'm going for that.
Thank you. There was someone near the back that.
I think my name came next.
Oh, Liz?
Oh, no.
No, okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get you after Liz, okay? And Matt will get you after, well, I've got kind of an order here. Unless you, I've got Liz, Betty, Kimberly, and then Matt, okay? All right. Liz.
Right here.
Yeah, she said just.
Oh, you can just read it? Okay. All right, I'll be glad to read it for you. This is about the issue of education. My story and my education is a big issue to me. My father was a sharecropper's son who did not have the option to go to school until he was 11. Started out in first grade at 11. Skipped 2 grades every year. Graduated with a bachelor's about 31 years old. Okay, thank you. Master's degree at 51 years old. None of that would have been possible without public education supported by the federal government and the VA. How can we as citizens best ensure public education is viable and thoroughly funded?
No vouchers.
Yeah, okay.
I guess, no, not an expert here, I just teach, and have kids through the system. However, I believe that when it comes to those vouchers, that the biggest thing is they will, I guess you could say gaslight, they will say and propose that this is such a good program. Like, what could be wrong with getting $1,700 for a child to attend a private school, especially if that private school is something that you really want. Maybe it's a STEM private school where they focus on, engineering and technology. Maybe it's a Christian school because it's really important to you to follow your religious beliefs and you kind of want that intertwined with their educational experience. All of those are legitimate reasons and that's amazing. But what they don't tell you is that they are ripping those funds away from public schools and that the majority of people who attend public schools can't afford to go to private schools, or they have a special needs child where the private school can say, sorry, we don't have ramps here for your handicapped son, or whatever, because special needs come in all shapes and sizes. They're not just, one fit. They come in all shapes and sizes. And so that is what we need to argue when we're faced with someone saying, what's bad about giving this money to a student who needs their education? Well, you want to know what's bad? Is that where does that money come from? It comes from the public school pool pot that we are supposed to be sharing with all of the kids,
Betty, did you want to speak?
Okay. All right. First of all, I thank you for this opportunity today. My name is Betty Lord from Hickory and part of Indivisible in Catawba County. So we're grateful for the opportunity to visit and join you. My question would also be for Representative Harrigan. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted and sentenced to 20 years for sexual exploitation and human trafficking of young girls. She was recently moved to a minimum security facility with, according to her lawyer, a concern for her rights. Rodney Taylor is a double amputee barber from Atlanta, Georgia, who was arrested and placed in Stewart Detention Center, Pumpkin, Georgia, in January. Mr. Taylor has no criminal record, and he's been in the United States since childhood. As far as I know, he is still sitting in detention at Stewart, a place that I visited with the team not too long ago to do some volunteer work. Part of that big, beautiful bill increases ICE enforcement, detention centers, border patrol, and all of these things against immigrants by billions of dollars, more than any other military agency that we have going for us in this country. More money is being put into these detention centers and ICE enforcement. My question would be to Representative Harrigan, how can this administration explain the blatant hypocrisy of the justice and equity here? And when will this administration recognize that immigrants are an important part of our country, paying taxes, many of them, thousands of them, in detention centers with no charges and not having any of their rights protected?
Thank you, Betty. Appreciate that. Kimberly, are you near a mic?
I was wanting you to read it.
Pardon? Oh, you need to read it, okay. So this is about Medicare. With SCOTUS denying Medicaid users the right to choose their medical provider, it seems like Medicare will become under that discrimination as well. SCOTUS said Medicaid users also do not have the right to sue. What recourse do they have? Because I believe I will be in that group when they get to Medicare. So, would anyone care to speak to, well, I know these last two issues. Anybody, any comments to add to that? Well, we might get back to that, but I appreciate your question.
What I can say is briefly, I think we do need to contact the legislators, especially in North Carolina, because they are working on that budget. There are going to be cuts from what I can see to Medicare as well as Medicaid, and that's how they're funding all this ICE stuff. So they take money from the people who most need it, because Medicaid and Medicare are very expensive, but then they shift it over to things like ICE. So just the basic level, contact all your representatives, senators in North Carolina and say, look, you're working on a budget, but I need to be protected. You're not protecting me, you're not protecting my right to have people's right to have Medicaid and Medicare unaffected by this terrible bill, but you can do something. And so you need to figure it out and you need to help us out. I think outcry, because if you don't let people know, they won't know, and the average person will not know this. And to be honest, I didn't know all this. So I appreciate the forum and being asked to speak, but we have to make our voices heard.
All right, Matt, I appreciate your patience.
Thank you, Amy. My name is Matt Zadinsky, and I'm a father of 5 with 2 gay daughters, and I want to thank you. This is a tremendous panel. My question is really about jobs. Jobs is what links education, economic performance, economic security, good housing, what makes things happen. And I think you were right, the $75 billion you're spending on immigration and ICE is coming at the cost of funding research and development. So I'd like to invite the Dave Shelton and talk about clean energy. And I'm in the power grid too. I work with cities across the United States, taking veterans and training them for this new energy technology revolution. When I was growing up, computers changed my life. Lilco came to my high school and said, we need science fair projects, because we want to put a man on the moon. And when I'm talking about that baking soda volcano, you know, we've been there, done it. It's computers. Well, energy technology is going to change our kids and grandkids' lives more than anybody else. So across America, in every community, people are working on project-based learning. We're not training kids with computers or robots. Robots are training our children. Maybe people on the panel could talk about what we need more than just funding Leandro, but about career education and about the professions reaching out. It's really the ethics in our professions. It's a doctor who will give healthcare even though it's against the law. It's about the lawyer who's going to support things. So I thought some people in the panel could talk about jobs and why we need to let Democrats.
It's funny because when Graham Alexander, the principal at Southern Energy Management, when he went to the representatives, he said, I'm going to have to lay out half my staff. And so when you think about jobs, and these are well-paying jobs because they're a B Corp. And to have a B Corp, you have to provide healthcare, vacation, and a living wage to qualify for B Corp. So, you know, it's so funny because you look at and you know, this discussion about ICE and this, I'm going to get off a little higher in the topic. There is so much crazy now that you know, when I think about putting money into ICE detention, so back when they were building missile silos, you sink all this money into a silo. How many jobs does that continue to produce? Not many. And that's this book that Mary referred to, Apple in China. Apple put in $50 billion a year into China for 5 years. Biden's bill was $45 billion over 4 years. And that's why they have industries now, and they're going to own us. The fact that we have basically given away the solar and EV industry is mind-blowing. But to get back to it, and I'll summarize quickly here, but I'm out of ideas. It's so crazy that quite honestly, my hope is that the average American is going to wake up to John's point and say something is amiss here. To your point, he's going to have to raise your price. What percent? So they said originally, oh well, China's going to. No, and he can only eat so much. He's running on, you know, it's insanity. I don't see how this isn't going to collapse.
maybe I'm not smart. I didn't really answer your question, but I do get concerned about jobs because I don't see how small businesses that are relying on inputs are going to do it.
Thank you so much. Really for you. Okay, someone, yeah. Right behind you. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, along the topic of tariffs, there was an NPR month ago, something like that, that diagrammed the beginning of the Great Depression in the 1920s. And the tipping point was tariffs. And Hoover was told by his political allies that this was a bad idea. And it tipped the economy into the Great Depression. So personally, ever since he was elected, I've been preparing for Great Depression 21st century style. The other thing is that there's been a lot of talk about, and I struggle with how I'm gonna find a way to make a difference. And I would just encourage this crowd to come to the Democratic Party in Lincoln County, over here in headquarters, Democratic women. There are multiple ways that you can help. You may not have a lot of time to just like sink into this. There are ways you can help, and at least it helps me feel less powerless to participate. And I hope that it will do that for you. Yeah.
We are getting close to running out of our 2-hour time, but I just want to echo a little bit and maybe channel my favorite historian, Heather Cox Richardson, who tells, I've listened to and read what she writes, some of you may as well, but something that she has said over and over has really impressed me is that not all of us can get up here and talk. Not all of us can go to protests. Not all of us feel comfortable making phone calls or even writing postcards, but you all have gifts and areas that you have expertise. So use what is your natural gift, what you're inclined to do, and do even if it's a tiny part, a small part, in making the changes that we all want to see and speaking out for those who cannot speak for themselves. And I just would encourage you all to do that. There are other organizations, Indivisible is one. I like it because it's nonpartisan, so we invite people across party lines to participate. There are other organizations that have other things going on, and it doesn't take much of a search to find some of those, or vehicles to help you know how to make. If you want to call your Congress people but don't know how, it's readily available through things like 5 calls, and there's some other things. And Indivisible can help you with that as well, and some other organizations. I just want to thank you all for being here today. And Greg, you got something you want to add?
If you're interested in calling,
Go ahead, use the mic, please.
if you're interested in calling your senators, your legislators, there's short resources. They will even give you a word to read, a script. You don't have to call up and yeah. And so when you use these resources, you just dial the number, read the script, and it gets, you're not, I know a lot of people struggle with trying to get everything out. But that's an available resource, that makes it a lot easier to call.
Yeah, 5 calls is one of them. Indivisible gives you some scripts, and there's some other organizations as well. Dave?
So what I try to do every day is make a call, talk to someone, and I will say it's not worked. Is I appeal, that's true, that's positive. I try to appeal to their sense of morality. So when I call Representative Harrigan, since you're a West Point grad, you had your education paid for, then you served the country. How many times have you pledged an oath to the Constitution? You know what's going on. You know, you're smart. He's a smart guy. I just try to always say, and I used to leave messages for Tillis, and I will say this, when Tillis dropped down, I called his office to say thank you, and I actually spoke to someone, they answered. So I feel like even if you don't know what to say in the policies, just, I think appeal to their morale, and, because they know. Senator, Representative Harriman, he knows what he's doing.
Thank you. And I do want to leave us with encouragement because this can weigh you down so heavily that you can't even function. So go for a walk. You know, read something that's just fluff. You know, every once in a while, watch a, crazy TV show. Take care of yourself, you know. Buy local. One of the things that I'm trying to do with my work is I try to patronize local businesses as much as possible. Laura, did you?
I just wanted to say, I'm Laura Morris, I'm part of the host committee. I'm an unaffiliated voter. And all these conversations we're having, if we don't have them with Republicans, we are never going to change anything. This is not about speaking to the empty chair. You know, when Pat Harrigan declined to participate, I thought, good, he wasn't going to listen to us anyway. But we've got to be talking to our neighbors and people around us who aren't already Democrats. I'm not a Democrat. I voted for Republicans before. I want the freedom in this county to be able to vote for my commissioners in the primaries, which is part of why I remain an unaffiliated voter. Otherwise, I'd never have any influence on the commissioners' board. But we've got to have these conversations with Republicans. That's the only way we're going to make some impact on some of these numbers we've just been looking at. 21% of the Medicaid recipients in our county are going to lose their coverage, period. My own son is going to lose ACA subsidies and have an 85% increase in his insurance costs. That's not sustainable. And how do we fix that? Where does the money come to fill those gaps? Because the state doesn't have it. Talk to the Republicans.
I think you make a good point there. A lot of these conversations need to be one-on-one, and they may be uncomfortable conversations. But when you're addressing issues and not attacking people, you may be able to get through to some folks and change their minds about some things. Yes, Ann?
I'm trying to say something really quick for anybody who's looking for some activism. Invisible is starting a program called 1 Million Rising. Small groups invite people into your home, a little bit of civil disobedience maybe, if you're up to it. But also, there's so many ways we can express our voice. It's not just the town hall. We can boycott, we can protest. We've made a difference. We've got to keep making a difference. Do not stop. This is a huge deal. This is going here. Go and keep going, keep going. We're throwing down tire tracks, all that we're throwing stuff in their ways and slowing them down, and that's what we've got to do, slow them down. We've got 2026 coming up, and slow them down, so then we have a chance.
Thank you. What Ann mentioned was what is 1 million? 1 million rising, and it's some training they did. I've watched the first one, I've got the second two to watch, but that will give you some tools to have these individual conversations. I saw a hand over here. Yes?
I just wanted to say, she said something about boycotts. Today is a boycott, it's a no live.
Okay, you can pay attention to boycotts, I'm not going to do that, that's an effective way to speak that too. I also want to tell you that we are planning more events coming up. We have some pop-up events, visibility events on August 23rd, or the week of August 23rd. So stay tuned to our social media and website if you're on our email list. Now, I live in Catawba County, so I'm concerned about Catawba County too, and it came to my attention a little while ago that Moms for Liberty, how many of you know what Moms for Liberty is? Yeah, they're all about banning books, which offends me on a personal level. They're having an event at Cheryl's Ford Library, the little library that's near where I live, on August 16th at 9:15. Well, I'm going to show up with my T-shirt and just be present there, and I think some of my indivisible Catawba County friends may show up. I want to invite you as well. This is a national thing. They're doing one in Charlotte, Shelby, and Cheryl's Ford. Those are the close by ones. But I think we need to speak up to things like folks who want to ban books. That's a hot issue for me particularly. So find your issue, find the way that you can speak to it, and come together with other folks, have those difficult conversations, and stay in touch with Indivisible or other organizations that are doing good work.
Date and time again of the Cheryl Sword thing?
Cheryl Sword, their event is a story time at 9:15. And I think me and some other folks are gonna be there about 9 when they're setting up. I don't think we're gonna do signs and protests, but we're gonna have T-shirts and get there early enough to have a seat in the big room, meeting room they have. So, and speak up if there's something said that is just, just a lie. I'm willing to do that, and I have other people.
We'll put that on the Indivisible.
Yes, we'll put that on the website.
The day.
That is August the 16th, that's next Saturday.
Will the slides from today be available?
The slides are, the slideshow we did is available, Mary, I don't know, if your slides, if you can make those available.
They are.
They are, okay.
They're already on
They're already on the website, yeah.
and we will place both, Mary and, David.
Okay.
But the presentation on the
If
website.
anybody who wants the Medicaid information, there's some really good, sources, policies.
Okay, and Angela, can you have it? Yeah, you're, and if you share those with us, we can help get information.
I will send you all the, sources that I've used, very good policy, organizations that use truth. And you can run down the numbers for the Medicaid, and they also talk about the other issues that, the bill, tackles. So I'll send that so you all can look at it.
All right.
Amy.
I was going to say on our website, there's a lot list of numbers to call if you have any information on Medicaid, Medicare, or how this is going to impact you. HeritageHouse.com, just go there. I went there and got all this information. My registered nurse, I was my manager, and you got all these things on the website for people to get the information out there for others. So, thank you.
Thank you. Cindy, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to just, first of all, I want to thank you all for being here. It's been awesome. You guys are great, but I also want to thank my town hall team and individual advisory support and all of the other people. Thank you so much for that. The other thing I wanted to say, and this is not a bad or negative thing, it's just a fact and I want you to know. So we invited the county commissioners, the city council, and the board of education. We reserved seats for them and they're empty. I did get a response from a few of them, Heather Ryan, who you won, and from a couple of them, the others didn't bother to answer. So just keep that in mind when you vote next time. Okay, Matt. Oh, Denise.
I'm gonna read that I thought about this meeting that I heard, somebody sent it to me and it really affected me. It's called The Authoritarian Cliff by Louise Daly. The sky was calm, the streets were still, but he cried out for war from Capitol Hill. No riot, no fire, no threat in the air, just a man with a crown and a vacant stare. He sent the soldiers into our towns. He said he'd save us all as he tore things down. The sirens screamed with the headlines missed and another freedom erased with clenched white fists. We're standing on the edge of an authoritarian cliff, with flags in our hands and truth adrift. Hungary fell, and Russia too. And now the mirror shows a red, white, and blue. So raise your voice before it slips, before we tumble from the authoritarian cliff. They called it order, they called it law, but it was theater wrapped in martial law. A test of silence, a trial by fear, while the Constitution disappeared. He jailed the truth, fired the wise, fed the courtrooms calculated lies, told every loss a stolen prize, no justice wears a thin disguise. We're standing on the edge of an authoritarian cliff, with shadows behind us and no safety net if. We keep on watching, keep playing dumb, then we deserve what we've become. Speak now or the silence grips. and down we go from the authoritarian cliff. There's a playbook written in cold regret of tyrants risen in nations that forget. And we are reading Act 3 aloud while the crowd still cheers and the press still bows. But I won't sing the strongman song, we'll let him drag this soul along. To camps, to walls, to courts gone blind, to a future we'd wish we'd all left behind. We're standing on the edge of an authoritarian cliff, with history's ghost whispering, exist. This ain't a drill, it's not pretend. This is how the republic ends. Unless we fight, unless we lift each other from the authoritarian cliff. So, light the truth and pass it fast, because the time for warnings has almost passed. One more step, and that's the fall. We either rise together or we lose it all. Thank you.
All right, folks, I think we are slap out of time. We do appreciate you coming. Keep up with Indivisible, our local chapter. Come to our events, look around, contact us, stick together, tell the story, keep going. We'll see you later. Bye.